Advisory. I will only be using footage from the series sparingly and when necessary so as not to get my review copyright struck or outright banned. When offering my own commentary, I will be using film grain, like the footage you're watching now, so I hope you understand and enjoy. Hey there folks, my name is Incubus, and welcome to the Mind's Eye. Something you need to know about me is if there's one thing I love, it's... Parties that never end, dogs that love cats, and twins! Documentary series, yes, horror documentaries. So, 2 years ago, upon hearing that AMC, the home of Halloween's Fear Fest, was premiering a 7-night horror docuseries for that year's October, my interest was piqued. Upon hearing who was hosting, the one question I asked myself was, who in the blue hell are you? If the late 90s focus shift towards teen horror was the Kool-Aid everyone was drinking to stay trendy, Eli Roth was its resultant backwash. If you're still unsure as to why the disapproval, let me remind you. The last time this guy was even remotely relevant was 2002 with Cabin Fever, and 2006's Hostel, both of which are nearly a decade and a half old. So, what has this guy done lately? I'll tell you what. The same year that this broadcast debuted, Eli Roth had released 2 films, both flops. I can understand a Stephen King or John Carpenter hosting their own documentary, but this guy? The hand-picked boy wonder who failed to ever materialize into the guy? But still, you insist, playing devil's advocate, this documentary series is a celebration of the genre. Surely there's nothing pandering or off-putting he could have said. Well, let's take a gander at Season 1 from the derpy face with the shoddy taste, shall we?
And don't call me Shirley.
I gotta be honest, at least half this listing has some vanilla softball choices. Zombies as your intro. I get that AMC is the home of The Walking Dead, but that show is on the decline, both in ratings and relevance.
Right now, it's the time of the zombie.
It's not. This not to mention how sick and tired people are of zombies, from video games to movies to TV shows. So, way to strike when the iron is cold. You really capitalized on that boom.
They are the monster of the 21st century.
You mean because of how languid and shambling our generation is? For more on that, how about a cheap plug? Head on over to the Mind's Eye Incubus YouTube channel for its inaugural episode, Stagnation Nation.
Without George Romero and Night of the Living Dead, there would be no Walking Dead.
The documentary does a classy job of paying respect to the man that started the zombie genre. I do still have a lingering problem with this series using Romero's name, especially when referencing The Walking Dead, considering the man's documented feelings toward that show. I won't get into it now, let's just say there's a reason why, when Romero was alive, they didn't have him on Talking Dead. And from there, oh no, we have our resident Karen and human virtue signal for the episode. I've tangled with this guidance counselor before on many a documentary.
Now, who here likes a good story about a bridge?
Okay, I'm gonna need to call in the big guns if I'm gonna get through this one. To liven things up on an episode regarding the dead, how about a drinking contest? I understand that horror serves as a mirror for mankind, but its messaging should be subtle and not so heavy-handed. So, with that in mind, let's take a shot every time this documentary gets needlessly blatant with its preachy politics. We'll call this game Blue Label.
But the debut of The Walking Dead in 2010 saw them explode into popular culture.
Excuse me, Mr. Director Host? That's factually inaccurate. 28 days later is what kickstarted the modern zombie fad, as you later referenced in this very documentary. The craze you speak of was almost a decade old by the time of The Walking Dead.
Let's say you're a white viewer in the late 1960s. who has a few prejudices, say, and is a little bit worried that the world is ending because of all of the racial legislation of the 60s, the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. And here's this zombie film where the dead are coming back to life and a black man is in charge. I will contend that that might have been as frightening to some viewers as the child eating her mother in the basement.
Let's say you're a casual viewer who doesn't see the world through the lens of skin color and prefers to just watch a good movie without being lectured to.
Potentially something hopeful, with the African-American protagonist, like maybe some new direction socially.
You can imagine the shock that audiences must have felt to be coaxed into identifying with a black man. A direct slap to any audience, right wing or left wing.
How about just as a human being? And the only way you could identify with a black man is through coaxing, huh? By my count, that's 3 shots. 1 for the nanny state and 2 for the white guilt.
Night of the Living Dead and its sequels changed the course of film history and inspired the best the horror genre has to offer.
The best of the genre? If that's the case, you couldn't possibly be referencing Shaun of the Dead.
When we thought up Shaun of the Dead, one of the inspirations for it is because there hadn't been a zombie film for like 15 years. We always had this theory that John Landis's video for Thriller had sort of killed off zombies for the second half of the 80s and early 90s.
Yet uses social commentary brilliantly.
A social justice scenario.
One of the police officers is unbelievably racist.
I was watching a political story about the race and class system in America.
It's the wrong impulses that come out of people that are far more terrifying than The Walking Dead.
It's plain to see that this is one of those basic documentaries where they drip feed you the same repetitive bullet points about zombies that every website and program does, without offering any new or interesting insight. They really spared no expense on this one. For a quick reference, this would fall into number 5. The only time this episode provides straightforward insight is when it does so accidentally.
Dawn of the Dead being the most kind of savage statement about the state of consumerism in the late 70s.
Yeah, considering the glut of zombie paraphernalia criticizing consumerism, the fact that there was indeed a glut of this genre, wouldn't that denounce the excessive reliance on this class of horror? You feed right into the same system that you're attempting to criticize.
It's based on a premise you can completely believe. I can't imagine what it's like to have a plague spread like wildfire because it's just too close to the headlines of today's news.
He sounds so helplessly stupid. I wish that a zombie apocalypse was a prank that you could pull just so I could show him how dumb he sounds.
28 days later, gave us a zombie for the fast-moving 21st century and set off a controversy that rages to this day.
Controversy, really? Can anyone think of a more trivial non-controversy than whether your clumsy chunk of walking cadaver comes in either fast or slow speed? Which one do I prefer? The correct answer is, who cares?
People talked about sort of the next quantum leap in zombie movies as 28 Days Later, because it had running zombies.
I'm a slow zombie guy.
Yeah, but didn't your movie, World War Z, turn zombies into steroidal cheetahs?
There is another kind of zombie, the deliberately reanimated corpse, like Frankenstein's monster. Created by Mary Shelley in 1818, Frankenstein's monster is the most famous member of The Walking Dead.
Frankenstein's monster is a zombie, for sure.
Without question, the dumbest of these points. Hey, let's attach our favorite brain-dead monster to a famous novel for literary credibility and hope no one notices. Frankenstein isn't a viral monster like a zombie is. If he were to bite you, you would not in turn become a Frankenstein.
The biggest threats they face aren't zombies, but other people.
Obviously, the irony is, who are the Walking Dead? Is it the actual zombies or is it the people?
Right.
I didn't read it as a zombie thing. I read it as this guy lost his family and he woke up and he didn't know where he was and he was going to do anything to go find his family. And that stuck out on the page way more than a zombie here and there, you know?
There is so much mixed messaging and an overall lack of confidence with this genre. You want to celebrate the zombie, yet when it's convenient for you or you want to sound refined, you'll resort to, nah, the zombies don't really matter. It's about the plight of the human soul. Whatever.
Plays like a family show.
It's all about the characters.
I think the great thing about zombies is they are like a catch-all metaphor of the world's ills.
Spared no expense.
And I would rather have a more inclusive range of zombies.
What? What was that? Inclusivity? I'll allow it. Was this documentary scripted for people just to say whatever Eli wanted them to, or providing their own input? How many times are they going to use the same word?
With Reanimator, director Stuart Gordon reimagined the zombie film as a wildly transgressive horror comedy.
It's a sick picture. Really transgressive.
I mean, there were things that were so transgressive in that movie.
The Walking Dead, for sure, is the next cultural milestone, really, since Dawn of the Dead and Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, really? What happened to Shaun of the Dead and 28 Days Later? Gee, I guess you can't really keep up with your own fluff pieces. Sounds an awful lot like you're losing the narrative of the rhetoric you're trying to shove down people's throats. This is your documentary series, Eli, right?
The plight of the survivors is a dark reflection of life in America today. The mortgage crisis of 2008 resulted in more than 3 million people losing their homes. There's a sense that civilization is fragile, that any day now, we could be like Rick, Daryl, and Carol.
No one would make that connection.
Anyway.
It's really cute how you try to connect social anxieties to an unrelated TV program. That doesn't smack of grasping at relevance. This episode inadvertently incorporated one of the most fourth wall breaking observations and didn't even realize how self-referential it was.
Doesn't it feel like zombies are cresting now too? Yeah, right now it does seem like we're in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. Yeah, the dumbing down of society. We're all zombies.
Hey, where do you think you're going? Charlottesville reference. I got you. Drink up.
Yeah, I got you. I got you on camera. You on candid camera now. You ain't know that.
Okay, so a bit of a rough patch with this rough start. It's pretty clear this amounts to a bottom barrel director doing a half-assed job of offering third-rate commentary. Appropriate that Eli Roth would open with zombies considering his own status as a Z-list celebrity. Hopefully our next episode will...